Hey everybody, it's Dr. Maya Alapin, Mama Soul Doc. I am not a medical doctor or a mental health care practitioner. Testing is a very important piece of the hypnotic process inside of the conversational method. Why is that? Well, I've explained in other videos and inside of my training how the process of undoing knots or solving problems works. So that's a whole process that's explained in other places. Once that process is fully underway, it's not enough to say, oh, great, okay, so you solved it, have a nice day, talk to you later, or never. That's not enough. And by the way, that's, I think, a very standard thing for people to do in classical therapy, which is like, oh, you're feeling better. Okay, so I'll see you next week. It's like ending on a nice, fresh note. But bottom line is, one reason why those kinds of therapies sometimes don't withstand the test of reality is because it's all nice when you're in somebody's office and you feel fine and safe and there's, lots of comforting things around. But then when you step back into your workplace, home, business, life, parking lot of whatever store you go to, there's a lot more chaos. There's a lot more unpredictableness. There's a lot more people doing things that, probably irritate or provoke you or test you, trigger you in some way. And life is happening, problems are happening. So the truth is, if we leave things on the note of, okay, I'm glad you're feeling better, then the real world is going to create some form of resistance or entropy, which is going to undo what you just did. So it's very important to test for resiliency, because without testing for resiliency, how do we know that the problem is really solved? Not just temporarily, but for the future. Like when the problematic events come up, when the, person yells at you in the parking lot, when the, spouse goes into their old shitty habits, whatever it is. Because that's the reality of life. Life is going to be a bitch. And so the testing is uh, an inbuilt process to increase the robustness of the client's response. And without it, we're really doing them a disservice, because you might think to yourself, like, oh, well, I don't want to like freak them out or bring up a bad, intuition, or like bring up something that may not happen, that, you know, if I bring it up, I'm programming them. You might have all kinds of thoughts about, like, I don't want to bring that up, right? But by not bringing those things up, what we're really doing is setting up the client to not know what to do when they actually do come up. So that's an important piece of the hypnotic process, the way I'm teaching it, because likability and comfortability is important to me, obviously, because we're not going to have a good relationship or rapport if we don't have some level of that. But me also introducing some level of what about this, what about that, what about that is very important, because it's taking off the table the concern I might have that this person is going to need to talk to me again later when life arises. There are several different types of tests that I think are important. There are scenario-based tests or circumstantial tests, emotional tests, hypothetical or like fantastical tests. And I think they do well to all be used in succession as the client needs them. So that's another thing that I just explained, in the testing class and in the training, is like, well, how do you know which one to use and when? I think it's pretty obvious when you get to the end of the hypnotic interview. Then you really know, okay, here are the things that would be useful to talk about in the testing phase. So testing is indispensable because it's not only very safe for the client and very important for them as they proceed through their life, but also for you as the hypnotist. It's insurance kind of, against you needing to repeat what you just did because the client sort of got sucked back into something because you didn't really prepare them. So it's a content-free method, and I love that about the hypnotic method that I'm using, the conversational method. But as you can see in this video, there are components and pieces of it that I think strengthen it and give it more texture. They're all optional because it really depends on what happens with the clients. If somebody comes out of a trance, in a very elated, very ecstatic, very convinced state, sometimes I might not need to go with the testing, but that's maybe not that often. So there are pieces that we can add to this content-free method to ratify it. We don't have to because it really depends on the session, the client, and where the whole experience ends up. If you have questions about this or anything else, please let me know. Or if you have ideas for any other videos that you would like me to record answering questions, let me know. Thanks for listening. This is Mama Soul Doc in Montreal, Quebec.